Duncan Sheik on Magic, 8:36 our time. Mike Barrett in the studio for Good Policies this week. Happy Tuesday, Mike.
Well, I'll say Tuesday, yes. I don't know if I'd necessarily throw happy in front of it. Come on.
Well, you just told me it's actually your Monday because your little man wasn't feeling well yesterday, huh?
Yeah, E-Man didn't feel good. And very rarely does he ask to stay home. In fact, almost really never. And yesterday, coughing and hacking, he said, I think I should stay home today. I'm like, okay.
Ethan, get better soon, my friend. Of course, I know you're already off to school, but you tell him, okay?
I will. I'll pass along.
All right, we have wonderful conversations about the insurance industry. Mike, I can't recall in the years that we've done this together that we've had this particular conversation this morning. And if you don't mind, may I pick the subject this morning?
I love it. Go for it.
Okay, so I drive north on 114 every day to go home, and which means I come down 114 every day to come into work. And I'm seeing loads of rental properties, but they're not the traditional rental properties like I live in, okay?
Yes.
Where you have a yearly agreement and so on and such forth. Folks, we're talking about similar things to Airbnbs. Mike, we haven't had this conversation. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Short-term rentals. I like it. I don't love it, but I like it. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
So you're talking Airbnb, you're talking Vrbo. There's a million and one out there. There's many different ways for people to offer short-term rentals. Some people, I think, even have their own websites and promote themselves and do it themselves. So it really begs the question, how does insurance handle that, right? Insurance has been a little slow to the uptake to some level here. There's still a number of companies that Airbnb is definitely a four-letter word. Put it right next to trampoline, which is also the longest four-letter word you'll ever hear. Many companies do not like them because it's hard to control the risk. Now, let's think about it. An Airbnb is a lot different than a long-term rental. Long-term rental, you have, long-term tenants and expectations and, a little more long-term safeness, I suppose.
Kind of more of a traditional.
Yeah. Whereas the short term is experience related more than a roof over your head. So a lot of the Airbnbs are going to have pools, hot tubs, wood stoves, fireplaces.
Fire pits.
Fire
too.
pits.
I've seen a couple of them headed up out through here.
So and I'm not saying those were bad things. They're certainly not. But you got to think, insurance companies are looking at risk mitigation. They want to make sure that they're insuring you, but it's a safe association. It's a safe risk. So there are many companies that we work with that we actually use specifically. We use them for a lot of things, but they have great market products for short-term rentals. They are widely accepting of property that is a full-time short-term rental. So if you buy a property and that is the sole purpose of that property is to have short-term rental, sure, go for it. We even have some regular companies, a little more restrictive on this side, with a couple, not all, regular companies who are like, you know what, we're okay with it as long as you're firing on these requirements. The certain age component for, you're not renting to teenagers or young adults who are partying type of thing. You don't have the wood heat that, and then there's other company out there, and actually I'll mention them, Safeco, just introduced to the product, probably this past summer, a really pretty awesome option for home sharing. Where you can work on options. So this is if you have a portion of your home, because Jeff, we're seeing all kinds. We're seeing properties that are all by them lonesome, a full-time rental. We're also seeing people with their homes who have a portion of their house that's an Airbnb or a short-term rental. And that's what Safeco and some other companies are willing to accept, is that situation where you're either renting part of your house or even all of your house for short periods of time.
Okay, now I'm a layman. I know nothing about owning property. I never will in my lifetime own a parcel of land or a building. I'm a renter.
Well, you can go online and buy a piece of Ireland, I think, for like $50.
Yeah, they'll send it to you in a box.
Yeah.
Where I'm going with this here, have insurance companies in the past, do they look at these Airbnbs very similar to, say, like a hotel motel?
To some degree, yeah. They're kind of bed and breakfasty to some degree, so that's why some companies have a broader acceptability. Again, though, the companies that look at it as a bed and breakfast really put some limitations on the access of the tenants to wood heat and things of high risk. Those companies are a little more skittish with those things. But I do have like 2 or 3 companies that I write every day of the week that don't really have 2 cares in the world because they know the risks, they understand them, and this is what they want to be doing.
Well, that I can understand, because if somebody is renting for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, 5 years with a wood stove or a fireplace, obviously they're more accustomed to it. Like you said, they know the dangers. Somebody, and I'm not knocking folks that do this, okay? But say they come from the city. They've never had a fireplace in their entire life. They're not as experienced, right?
And, that was one of the most interesting things. And I'll throw you an example. My brother-in-law was renting. Now, my brother-in-law's from here, but he lives away now. And he was renting a condo at Bretton Woods that had a wood stove. And it was him and a bunch of guys that there was plenty of fun going on there because they were younger. And there was a wood stove. And I'm an insurance guy going, man, there was a time where that didn't matter to me. And now I'm looking at that going, that's kind of sketch, to quote my son, So it's one of those things where you are kind of concerned of people who have no experience whatsoever of utilizing a wood stove. So and therein lies the concern of the company. That's what's the higher probability is people who don't necessarily know how to use. But I don't know if that's a focal point this morning. It's really whether there's acceptability or not. But also on the other side, how if you are renting to people, do you have liability coverage? You want to make sure you've got personal injury liability. You want to make sure you've got protection through the Airbnb or Vrbo. They have policies that can help cover you. You want to make sure you're covered for not just the property side of things, but very important to have coverage for the liability side of things. What if somebody trips and falls, slips and falls on ice or snow? They say that you wrongfully canceled their booked trip. There's so many things. This is a business. So you got to make sure you're thinking like a business person to make sure you're covering all of your bases.
All right, folks, there you have it. The Airbnb conversation with Barrett Insurance Agency. That, I think is kind of it. We can go on with this, too, at a later date. But if somebody out there right now has one or is considering it, if they want to talk with you about it, how can they?
Yeah, feel free. Give us a call, 748-5224. You can find us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency. And really, Jeff, the biggest thing here is, regardless if it's Airbnb or Vrbo, never start something of that magnitude without doing all of your due diligence. So certainly check with somebody before you make significant changes. So.
It's important stuff in the world we live in. Yes. Mike, good to have you here with us Tuesday mornings.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All righty. We're headed back to the music with the latest from the Killers. Boy, on Magic 97.7.